All right, everyone. Welcome on in. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Today, we're going to be doing some cool stuff. We're going to take some actual living, breathing astronauts to the moon. But first, we have to sort of clean up our toys from the last time I was playing. So, right now, I'm flying our little workhorse class Munar tug. Um, this little guy's name is the Glukov. He's a literally just a reusable transorbital stage for me to use. So he can do 20 tons to the moon and back before he needs to refuel. I think I worked it out once. I've lost those notes. I'll have to work it out again. But I think he can do 50 tons if he can refuel at both ends. We just don't have the ability to refuel him at the moon yet for obvious reasons. And right now we need to send him to some fuel that I've put in a parking orbit um, because we knew we were going to have to refuel him. And I'm sure this will be annoying for folks who are catching the VOD later. In like, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, when people start sort of filing in, we'll start giving some announcements and stuff too. I have a bunch of announcements to put out. I've also, since the last KSP stream, I've turned on the setting. I thought it was actually a mod, but it turns out it's just a setting um, that adds some ambient light boost when you're on, uh, for example, like the dark side of a planet. So instead of everything going pitch black every time I'm back here, which is a lot of the time, we can actually see what we're doing, which is helpful to me as a pilot and also helpful to you guys as viewers. So I think it's fair. This remains my sort of model train set in space save rather than like my ultra hardcore space flight simulator, if that makes any sense. So I don't necessarily care about being able to see more than I should. Half the time, I don't even have pilots on these craft anyway, so it's not like seeing is that important. Um, right. And what we're doing right now is called phasing orbits. So whether you're using the MechJeb sort of autopilot to handle your flight ops for you, or you are flying manually when you're doing a rendezvous like this, sometimes in order to get your ship to line up, you have to do phasing orbits, which are basically just doing laps around the planet, waiting for the distance between what you're trying to dock with and yourself to be as small as possible. And then when you get very close to each other, you'll do some extra burns to sort of match speeds with the target. Everything about an orbit is basically the speed you're going. Um, the speed you're going and the speed you were going before the last time you changed speed, basically, is how orbits work. So, um, by making it so that we have the exact same velocity as the target object, and making that velocity change at the right time, you can essentially park next to something in space so that, like, even though you're both going, I'm going a little over 2 kilometers a second right now, but relative to one another, you ideally won't move at all. Um, so that was us slowing down. What that'll do is allow us to literally just sort of drop on top of the target. And then when we reach the position of the target, we'll speed up again so that we're going the same speed it is. You'll see what I mean when we get there. But in the meantime, it's just about ads time. It won't be ads time if you're watching the VOD or you're watching the re-upload on YouTube, but it's gonna be ads time for us here in live. So hopefully you get to actually see the maneuver. If not, you've seen me do these maneuvers before in previous streams. Farron is very angry that instead of talking to Miyauki, who's right here, I'm talking to nobody, as near as he can tell. He thinks I've gone mad. This is actually my first time doing this refueling operation with the ambient lighting favorable. Somehow, this always ends up on the night side of the planet, and I'm trying to like fumble around in the dark, looking for targeting ports. Right, so now we can handle our docking. And I'm going to make this really easy for myself. I'm going to say dock target to target. And then I'm going to switch craft just for a second and do the exact same thing. And I will actually, just for the sake of argument, we'll dock. We'll have the fuel tanker dock to the workhorse instead of the other way around. I know it doesn't really look like we're moving, but we are. By the time the ad read is finished, I'll start sharing the announcements that I had. I'm watching over here where it says status. I'm just basically looking for that to say anything alarming. Right, the ad read's over, so I might as well start with the announcements just while the autopilot brings us in for this last tiny bit of docking. That's actually gorgeous. Let me just get a screenshot real quick. Alright, so announcements. First of all, I want to start with the best news. Thanks in part to everyone who watched the last stream and donated to our GoFundMe, and also everyone else who donated to the GoFundMe. Farron has made it to the vet. He's been to the vet and he's had his operation, which was to Uh, Sorry, I have to turn that off because it's really distracting me for some reason. So Farron, our little bunny had to go to the vet to get an operation to remove a what we thought was a tumor on his butt.
It was still a tumor.
It was still a tumor, but it turned out to be it turned out to be benign. He basically had a hair follicle go haywire on him. And it really did need to come off. It was extremely important that we had that operation done. I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad you were able to help. He is doing much better. We had to keep him in the torment nexus that we built for him so that we could keep him where we could keep an eye on him and he couldn't go and hide for us for a couple weeks, but now he is out. He is doing very well. He still has a bald little butt. There's pictures on the Discord, there's pictures on Instagram. But he's doing very well. So thanks everyone for helping out with that and for your sort of thoughts and vibes for him as well. The other great news, for me anyway, is that I'm starting a new job in a couple weeks, which means that I'm getting yelled at by Farron for talking about his shit on the internet. I'm gonna be I don't even know, my noise canceling might be cutting it out when he stomps like that, but he's doing his thumper impression and it's adorable. Um, anyway, yeah, I'm gonna be starting a new job soon. It's gonna be a wonderful time for me. It's gonna be a great new opportunity, but it also hopefully means that soon we'll be blowing the dust off of some of the projects we've had to put on hold because of my old job. So Petty is the first thing that springs to my mind is, well, at this point we might as well finish it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it should come back into the streaming rotation to work with it again. And let's see, what else was there for good news? I feel like I had more things when I sat down. It's always the way though, isn't it? As it comes to me, we'll share other good news throughout the chat. Oh, the good news for you, as people who play video games, is that this save is going to start being available. I've recreated the wiki that originally went with this save file. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to recover the old data. That's its own whole story. You'll remember that rant from the last stream, but I have rebuilt the wiki, and on that wiki, I'm now storing a copy of the save game. I'm going to update it basically whenever I play. And the mod list that we're using will be there as well. All right, so that's the Glukov refueled. It's much faster now than it used to be, now that I've learned that you can alt-click on fuel tanks. So now we need an actual spacecraft, don't we? Something worth flying. And for that, we have to go to the vehicle assembly building. So let's get over there. And I want to make some changes to this vehicle as well, which might mean this actually takes a while. So let's build it from scratch, and then we'll let's see. I want the Munar lander assembled, I think is the easiest way to fix this. So the last time we flew this mission, I ran into a problem, and that problem was that it's very easy for this spacecraft to lose power. This upper stage, this box basically that says NASA on it, contains no extra batteries and no extra power generation. So once it's been in orbit for like 5 minutes, it just dies, which is not overwhelmingly helpful. So I wanted to fix that. That was the first thing that we kind of had to pay attention to. And I'm gonna do my best. This thing has become such a janky shape that it doesn't really like to it doesn't really like to let me attach things to it anymore. But we'll do what we can do here. And if I repeat that by putting some on the back, I'm just gonna peek underneath. Yeah, I thought that one right. Oh, I see what's happened. I gotcha. Now, hopefully this doesn't push us. They're pretty light, so I don't think it'll push us over our weight limit, but you never know with these things. Alright, so I need to grab the rotate tool. And we also need to grab the move tool, because that's not going to work. I've been playing this game for a little over a decade, basically since it came out. And I'm still kind of like just learning about some of these tools that exist, which is very funny to me. Oh yeah, and this ladder's a problem. But it might not be if we again. Can I pull it out any further? No. Okay. I don't know why I can't get that evenly spaced anymore. It's too far, isn't it? So now I'm basically worried about that heating the tank. Let's actually just try. I'm gonna try just seeing if I can get a Kerbal to come out down that ladder. If it's fine the way it is, I'm not gonna fuss with it for too long. But on the original flight, so I guess to explain myself, I flew this flight um, the other day. Okay, he can traverse that ladder, so it was just the light that was in the way, I guess. Great. Avert flight to vehicle assembly. Anyway, the other day when I flew this mission, one of the forms of trouble I ran into was that ladder. Okay. The other thing that became an issue, there were actually a lot of issues with this flight. I need a stack separator here rather than a decoupler. That'll work. Okay, then we reroute the whole assembly to being attached to that, and we'll update the subassembly. so that when we build the ship, and then it was actually the same problem with that thing. Except here I only need that one. Alright. Of course, the other problem is going to be staging is going to be a nightmare for this thing, so let's boop. And then we'll update the command module definition. Great. Now we can finally, after all that tinkering around, actually assemble a spaceflight. So we're going to use my not Falcon 9. And we're going to just have to make some modifications to it. So I'm going to take all this stuff and toss it into the void. Then we're going to take the Munar lander module that attaches first. Just like that. And then we also need to take the command module and attach it there. And at least for launch purposes, we need to disable the reaction wheels. No, sorry. We need to hit the toggle torque, disable the reaction wheels for those. Because if you don't do that, the whole thing will shake itself to bits. We're also going to have to look at the staging. Don't let me forget that bit. That looks right, that looks right. Just set a crew and then rebuild the fairing, and then I think we're pretty much good to go. Do I feel like adjusting? Maybe we didn't really use these lights last time, so let's take them out of storage and we'll replace them with ooh, I don't know. Replace them with some cargo bits. There we go. All right. So crew and staging. Easy peasy. We'll bring Orny with us. Lisby and Megzer aren't allowed to go because they were on the last mission. Leywin can go, and then we need a scientist. The only two scientists I have. Let's see if we can hire some new scientists. I'd really try not to use the orange suits for anything, so... Congratulations, Jebs, and you're going on this mission. You're gonna hear me take all sorts of screenshots, because that's how I preserve notes for the purposes of this aforementioned wiki. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe I'll do it in white this time. I did it with silver last time, and it looked nice on launch, but I don't know. I never really know what I'm doing. Alright, we do have to fix staging, so which decoupler are you? You're that one, which is correct. Let's add some other staging. Which decoupler are you? You definitely don't go yet. Actually, we're not going to bother sorting out this stage 0 staging until we get up on orbit anyway. That just sounds easier to me. And let's start naming the ship. So this is the Kojin-3 mission, and specifically this thing is the Chiba. Nope. Hattori. Command module. Alright. So let us to orbit. Now we should be able to hit an 80-kilometer orbit in this thing, no problem. But we do need a target. Launch to rendezvous. Alright, here we go. This is either going to work or not. If it doesn't work, we'll revert it and start the launch again. So this mission, this manned mission, 3, 2, 1. This manned mission is part of Project Kojin, which if you take a look at the wiki, and I'll put the wiki link in the chat here. Project Kojin is part of my project to essentially colonize the moon. The project itself is just picking the site of our colony, and the purpose of that colony is going to be mining ore, which is a stock, like base game resource. We're going to mine the ore, and once we have mined the ore, we are going to turn it into fuel, which we will then use, of course, to refuel. We already have a station in orbit around the moon, so that fuel will get lifted up onto that station, and then eventually, because we have a station at the moon and we have a station at the, we will have a station in low Kerbal orbit. We can just basically fuel stuff up wherever, which lets us build rockets with longer endurance more easily. So like rockets to Duna suddenly become feasible, rockets to the far outer planets technically become feasible, all that sort of stuff. So these intrepid explorers are going to go visit a location called Site Eurus, which is named for the probe that was sent to the same site earlier in the year. I think in game it's like 2 months ago we landed this probe we landed a whole bunch of probes all over the moon in an area that we knew had a lot of ore, and we're just kind of looking for the best construction sites now, which for some reason I've chosen to do that mid-manned. And yeah, that's essentially the story of the story. And what we're doing, so we're launching a vehicle that's a lot like the Apollo mission vehicles in our real world. But we're doing it with something that's a lot like the Falcon 9 rocket. I've been calling it a reusable launch stage, but it's basically just this bit here that's glowing green, and these engines obviously produces, in theory anyway, enough um, thrust, for lack of a better word, to put a 20-ton object into an 80-kilometer orbit and still have enough fuel to come back in and land. Now, we've never actually successfully landed this thing. That's something else we're going to be attempting today. Um, and we have the added constraint of needing to worry about um, life support because of the Kerbal life support mod that I have installed. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about that too much. What I am worried about is how badly this rocket is just sort of flailing around. So we're going to have to enable our CS and let it sort that out. If we have to steal monopropellant again from the workhorse, we absolutely can. We had to last time. And I'm going to go ahead and deploy this fairing. Just to shed the weight. And that will help us with the circularization burn that's coming up here. Anytime you want to actually fire the engines up autopilot, that would be great. There we go. Oh! Yeah, that happened last time, and I can't remember what we did to fix it. Shoot. I might have left the fairing intact. Let's... So I'm actually willing at this point. What I'm going to do, I'm going to disengage the autopilot. I'm just going to fix the orbit. And we can... Wait, what? Okay. Alright, so, yeah. By fixing the orbit like that, we can just assume the launch went successfully. I'm pretty sure the reason that happened is because I deployed the fairing too early. Fairings aren't meant to be structural, but they're kind of structural. So we'll just proceed as though the mission hadn't. Oh. We'll just proceed as though the mission hadn't geborked itself, and then we'll handle the rendezvous afterward. Actually, let's not do that. Now that may be because last time I actually didn't turn... I didn't turn the reaction wheels all the way off. I turned them to, I think, SAS only. Which really just kind of proves the whole, like, this game is a constant learning experience situation. So we now need to execute a cute little docking maneuver. What are you doing? Oh, I see. It's giving itself room to... Gotcha. I don't always understand what the autopilot chooses to do. For me personally, especially with Kerbal, the flying the missions is not the fun part as much as the designing them is. But what that does is make me reliant on things like MechJeb, which occasionally make unusual choices. All right, success. Great success, even. So, now we will deploy that stack separator. And just get this thing to stabilize itself. And we'll deploy everything from our service bay. We'll get our little solar panels out so that we don't have to worry too much about anything in particular. We'll re-enable the reaction wheels on that one so that we can turn off RCS. I should have stolen monopropellant from that guy before we separated, but it's too late now. Oh, now our periapsis is really low, so actually I'm going to make an executive decision and grab the Glukov now. Normally I would try to land the stovepipe first, but simply unsafe with how low that periapsis is. I'm gonna just do this instead. Miyaki must have found something cute. She just made a really excited noise. Do you want to share with the class?
I found Yumi Nikki cards as a Balatro mod.
Oh, that's awesome, actually. You have the PC version of Balatro too, so you can mod it.
I do.
Alright, let's get the Rendezvous autopilot running. Oh, and we want to control from here. Otherwise, we were going to end up in an illegal orientation for this maneuver and look like idiots. We did that last time. If you are one of the lucky 10,000 people today who gets to learn about a cool new thing, Yume Nikki was this really cool RPG maker. I don't even want to call it a horror game, but it's a weird RPG maker game. Miyaki's making a face that means maybe I can call it a horror game. So it's a game about a Japanese girl who is having very unusual dreams, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. It's just such an interesting experience. All right, I'm pretty sure that the 69,000 semi-major axis is valid. You can actually see our... I'll tell that story later. One story at a time. Next intercept window will be 171 orbits away. Increasing phasing rate by establishing a new phasing orbit at a higher altitude. That's pretty normal, honestly. The Glukov is designed with that in mind for its mission profile as well. We've never gotten one stranded for not having enough fuel. We did get the first workhorse, which was called the um, I've forgotten it already. Mosque, I believe. Um, yeah, the Mosque. We got that one stranded in a really weird orbit because it ran out of power. So to fix that, when we deployed the Glukov, we added a RTG to it so that it technically has infinite power for its purposes. Nothing it does actually uses power unless it turns its lights on. Well, and the probe core constantly drains power, but now what I am hoping about this, and I'm kind of worried, is there is a limited amount of life support on that ship, but that limited amount is like a week, and these missions take like I think 2 in-game days, so we should be okay. We were really comfortable on life support last time. I shouldn't be that worried about it. But I am. I just am. This will also be a good test of rendezvous, autopilot rendezvous with something in an eccentric orbit, which it's not super eccentric, but it's eccentric enough. And without cheating, I can't circularize it, so I don't know if anybody's heard of this or not, but tomorrow morning, wait, might be the day after tomorrow. I have to double check. In the next day or two, um, NASA is launching the Artemis 2 mission. If you haven't heard of this, I am shocked that I hadn't heard of this until like a day or two ago. Artemis 2 is essentially like the Apollo 8 mission. We're sending a crewed spacecraft to go fly past the moon, get gravity assisted, and then flung back to the Earth. Oh, that's not good. I rendezvoused with the wrong damn thing. Uh-oh. Where's my crewed? Set as target. Gauge autopilot. We might be finding out how a an emergency crew return from Kerbin orbit works for these missions in a minute. We'll see. That's kind of a permanent problem in Kerbal Space Program is naming inheritance. This thing should not have been called, uh, the Yukio Hitori, whatever the hell. Um, that's the one I actually want. That's 3 kilometers away. I'm gonna end up doing a bunch of orbit shuffle. The good news is it hasn't re-entered yet. It might actually be close enough that we don't have to do really weird orbit stuff to catch it. Nope, we're going all the way back up to 130 kilometers and coming back down. Great. This is also one of those situations where I wish that you could control more than one rocket at a time somehow. Like, I would love to be having the stovepipe landing taking place now while we're doing all this weird shuffling. Um, the good news is I think we're using so little fuel that we're honestly fine. We're not going to have to do any weird fuel shuffling. I'm going to have to once again use this thing for donor fuel for the um, reaction control system, but so one way that I could actually solve that rigidity problem is there's a setting within fairings to make them have an internal structure. You'll remember the rigidity problem I'm referring to is you'll remember during launch the the actual like moon ship with the like the cruel capsule, the command module and the lander module in it went all floppy. And I could solve that because fairings have a solution that lets you add um, snappable nodes within the fairing that then get a frame around them. I'll just need to add a little more RCS budget so that the landing module and the um, moonlander, or sorry, the command module and the Munar lander can push themselves out sideways and then dock to each other. Which, if there is a KOJ4 mission, I've planned to need to do up to 4 crewed missions, basically, before I run out of names for things. Um, so when I do that mission, we could solve that problem and do one legit launch. I was pretty sure that when I did the KOJ2 mission, which is already documented on the wiki, that I did get a legit launch, but I really can't remember what I did to rigidify everything. So I'm thinking that I probably encountered the same problem where I went, oh well, you know, I'll just lock the orbit in, um, and we can worry about everything else later. We're still kind of doing fine for provisions. So I'm gonna make the set as target. So now we'll just be able to fly straight over to it and hook up, and this won't be a 20-minute ordeal like it was on the original mission. Now control from here. All right, success. The Hattori Michiba complex is assembled and ready to go to the moon. But before we go to the moon, I'm going to land our stovepipe, wherever the hell that went. Switch to it. So, there has never been, in the history of my save file, a successful attempt at what we're about to do. So let's, I guess, do it. Landing guidance, land on the KSP pad. So we're going to basically make use of the autopilot to time the landing burn, and then we're going to fly the rest of this manually, which is always kind of a pain. I think I've attached this node upside down. Yeah. So we're going to have to just land anywhere, which is fine. That is absolutely not retrograde. Which is fine, but that's very annoying that that's not working correctly. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why are we going into a flat spin? We're gonna run out of monopropellant on this one, boys. Well, there you go. We've at least got a re-entering periapsis. Now, what's miserable about this is that I'm not going to be able to deploy the heat shield, so this thing's basically a lost cause. Um, in fact, it is so much basically a lost cause that we had might as well just switch control back to back to the moon mission. Um, cannot switch vessels while in the atmosphere. All right, never mind. We have to proceed with this shenanigan. All right, Todd. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome on in, by the way. I didn't even know you were there. Oh, I see the problem. I immediately see the problem. The mech jeb did not agree on the orientation of the ship to what the probe core did. I forgot there was a separate mech jeb unit on here even. Oh, interesting. Maybe by inflating the heat shield we can salvage something. It doesn't really matter. I'm pretty sure that right there. No, that over there is the Kerbal Science Center. So we might have maybe actually made it where we were going if the rocket hadn't completely come apart. Oh, that might have just broke something. Hold on. We'll see. All right. Hopefully everything's still where it should be when we load this. But I don't know about you. I didn't really want to watch another. Oh, ad break soon, huh? Speaking of, I don't want to watch. All right, I'm gonna do some fuel ops and trigger the ad break early, and then when we come back, we'll do the actual moon stuff. The reason I'm doing this in this really odd way um, is that I want these three tanks to stay balanced. And the only real way to do that is by this weird kind of juggling system that I'm doing. Hmm. Alright, that's about as fuel opsy as I think we're going to get. So, and we're also back from the ad break, which is perfect timing for everyone. We just had to move some RCS fuel around. But now it's time to actually go ahead and do the needful. We're going to go to space today, and we're going to start by getting just a regular old, everyday, Bob's your uncle, Tilly's your aunt kind of transfer to the moon. Node in 20 minutes, that's an acceptable delay, sure. And we have plenty of fuel to do it, so let's go ahead, we'll get out of map view. We'll turn on RCS, and we'll execute our next node. I'm going to let it finish positioning itself with RCS this time, and then we're going to rely on reaction wheels for all other moves just because of how low on monopropellant we're getting. I am genuinely concerned about this, so we're going to just tough it out without it. SS only. SS only. Maybe it was pilot only? Yeah, it was. No, it was SAS only. The issue is that the stack does not have perfect alignment, so the reaction wheels fight each other, which is very frustrating. Oh, that's frustrating. I forgot to re-enable the engine that was going to allow this burn to happen in the first place. But just like that, we are off. We're burning away at top speed for the moon. Which means Patch has to take the time to get as many nice photos of everything as he can. Again for the wiki. And Hopefully we end up in an orbit something like what we actually wanted. Um, Moon orbits are one of those weird things to me where it always looks like you're never possibly going to make it, and then you get like a perfect intercept every time. So off we go. So if you haven't kind of already guessed, the Glukov isn't best design. The workhorse class in general is not the best design. I've got Delta V to spare. But this payload is basically its design payload, and we're at a less than one thrust to rate ratio, so like all these maneuvers just take ages to burn. Um, in future, I do plan to replace this chunk with something more appropriate that's got a little bit more oomph. I basically used this engine because like this is the engine I always use for transmuner stages. Forgetting, of course, that this transmuner stage would be significantly heavier than any other one that I've built to date. All right, we are now officially interorbital. So let us consider um, oh boy, what's happening here? Let's see. 1 day, 1 hour, 43 minutes. Um, 5 hours. Okay, so we have time. We definitely have time to correct our orbit. Let's add a maneuver right about there, and we'll just start messing with it. So I have a theory that I want to actually slow this thing down a bit. So let's modify this maneuver. And we'll scale it way back. We'll scale it, I'll do it like 10 meters per second at a time. Moon periapsis is still just ludicrously high. It's a bit more reasonable. $207. Alright, yeah, that's reasonable. So let me bring out the maneuver planner again, and then we can just hit execute next node. And we're basically retrograding the hell out of our burn. And what happened there basically is our burn was late, so we're getting a really weird injection. Now, I'm freaking out about this number over here, this 944 meters per second, but it's actually not that bad. Um, that number's going to go way up when we drop the payload off at the moon. Whoa. Now, why in the hell would that be true? So we just have to... Something very unusual is happening, but hopefully the system will figure it out in a minute. And we still got plenty of monopropellant on board. It feels like we don't, but we do. Am I around the right moon? Yeah, that's the far side crater. Why are you shaking yourself apart, my guy? Okay. Alright, so now we need to save. And we're going to call it Koj-3 Moon Station. Okay. Alright, so obviously we've got some problems happening. I'm going to start by decoupling here. Um, and we will proceed, I guess, with the landing before we worry about sending this guy back. And then we'll do everything else. So let's deploy our scanner and we'll get some CurbNet access. And that all looks very pleasant. Yes. Okay. So now we need to transfer crew. We can transfer crew internally, but I can't remember who we're sending. So we're sending Lewin. And we're sending Jebsen to the surface of the moon. And Orny is going to stay, because he's actually a pilot, he's going to stay in orbit the whole time. And all right, now we're just going to do it. We're just going to do the scary thing. So I need my landing guidance, and we're going to land at a point. We're gonna start by targeting a specific object, and it's this thing. And we've picked that target, but now we're going to massage the landing position. And no, I don't trust that. We're gonna do that. 35-21. Okay, I'm gonna basically pick a target manually, and I think that's gonna be roughly correct. And we're going down. Wait. We're not going down yet. Now we're going down. Let's see. I might not have picked a very good entry orbit. The goal is kind of to have, when all three pieces of this landing come into Munar orbit, they should be at the right inclination already. But on the last landing we did, we had way more fuel than we actually needed in the lander, so we can live in hope a little bit. Oh, and we're also going to rename this vessel, because it's the lander, to the Michiba. And that sudden camera angle change means we are landing roughly where we wanted to land. Ooh, maybe not, though. I'm getting... We may reload the save. We'll see. But this is we're going to actually land very far off target, which is obviously not ideal. Which might actually be why there's a third and a fourth mission. I'm going to accept this landing as it stands. We won't save scum the landing. If it lands in a very unusual position, that's just flavor. I don't understand why the auto warp is not warping. Oh dear.
Aaron.
It's trying to reorient itself or something. I'm not entirely sure why it's fighting. But it should be more willing than this to warp, so I'm thinking maybe it's possible something has actually gone wrong with the autopilot. It's like it's struggling for attitude control or something, maybe. There it goes. Alright, it's figured itself out. We're definitely landing in the wrong position, though. We want to land uh, basically in that bowl. Actually, no, we want to land where that yellow icon is, and we're not landing there at all. Um, all right, well, this is obviously the interesting story point for this mission. Then is that the Machiba lander ends up somewhere it's not supposed to go, and now we get to do all sorts of fun stuff that way. Is you gonna be okay there, little man? Farron has been placed in a position, and for some reason he finds that difficult to process. Much like the autopilot is currently doing. It's very frustrating. Um, we still have objectives to do, like I'll just have to fly another mission, basically all the same stuff again. Um, but like I said, I plan to do up to 4 of these, so doing 2 more man missions wouldn't actually be the worst. I'm not going to make them all streams, but because to be honest, to a certain extent, once you've seen this landing once, you've seen it every time it's going to happen. Although I do have to say, not being able to predict my landing locations is a major problem for um, the prospect of building a colony on the moon. If I can't reliably land things in roughly the same spot. Oh boy, this is quite the slope. Lander's not really designed for quite the slope, so we'll see how this does. Hopefully it stays upright enough. Oh, molto bene. Alright, perfect. Oh, that's weird. Why won't... So why? Why can't... Oh! The wheels broke. I think. Broken. Repair from EVA. Okay, cool. Interesting. That's never happened before. Alright. Oh. Oh goodness, I don't know if I want to attempt EVA from here. Alright, let's try it. She might not be able to repair them either because the thing I did not pack was repair kits. Yep. Okay, so we need to add repair kits to future mission plans. That's good to know. I guess we'll fly over them. I mean, this is just space. Space flight in a nutshell, right? Is how many things can go wrong that you can still... Getting better at EVA. That's a start. I don't normally have this much trouble with the terrain glitching when I'm playing either. meant to leave a note, but I guess we're not doing that today. We might as well still unpack the science, I guess. So we'll have Jibson get out too. Jibson Kerbin, of course, is the first male Kerbin on, or Kerbal on the moon since the end of the First Steps program. Oh no, I'm not falling for this again. Okay, so you cannot have anyway, you cannot have an EVA pack and be in a position to deploy these science instruments. Like Kerbals just don't have big enough pockets, essentially. Um, so yeah, I guess good to know for next time. I need to bring EVA kits in case I. Oh, Todd, you're home. Congratulations and well done. All right, well, I suppose then there's not to do but attempt to return to uh, Kerbin. It's nice to be where the people aren't. Boy, howdy. This is correct information. Alright, we gotta get Leywin back to her lander here. And we're gonna do it the same way we got her all the way over here. Time to get superheated and a cup of coffee, boy. Yeah, actually, a cup of coffee is a great time. So Lewin is now our most qualified EVA pack operator for sure. Um, it's a shame that we've landed our lander in entirely the wrong place, and essentially sort of scrubbed the mission. We also destroyed the rover. Oh, but we can still get the data out of the rover. In fact, let's attempt getting the data out of the rover. So ore on the surface is a dismal 3%. That's actually less than the planet-wide average. So we won't be we won't be changing our plans to come over here. Now we need a very low orbit, um, which we're going to now attempt to get. And last time I did this, I did it with the Ascent autopilot, or Ascent. Uh, I want like an 11 kilometer. Now we're gonna see if this works. I'm actually kind of skeptical. Um, this is gonna burn basically all the fuel we've got, so I'm also really hoping that 11 kilometers is enough to to keep us clear of like the irregular surface of the moon. I think it's enough, but so yeah, Lewin and Jebsen have deployed their scientific instruments, even though they weren't in the original site. Um, but especially since their rover was rendered inoperable, they determined that they would not do a grand survey of their landing location the way that the previous crew had. Um, and we'll say that the command module was at least able to fly over the desired landing location um, that it was originally set for, so we at least got the ground scan data from the lunar module. Alright, everything else that we do, we're gonna have to do with the help of the command module. There's simply no other option. So let's switch to that. Now, the big advantage that the command module has is that it is operating from a higher altitude than the other craft, so all of its plane change maneuvers are going to be cheaper, and of course it has more fuel. It has kind of way more fuel than it needs to have, to be honest. Right, rendezvous, autopilot. And we need a target, so I'm going to find that lander can. This target. This is going to be sketchy. Woo! 5 stream watch streak. Because of how infrequently I've been streaming, that streak's gonna have extended all the way back to like... Oh no, we're burning a ton of fuel to do this. Um, we're gonna have to make some educated decisions after we make the rendezvous. uh, we're gonna burn like half our fuel making this plane change. So there is moderately good news. There's a few things we could do. We could strand the Glukov. We could fly the Glukov out to this position and then um, I could fly the Glukov out to this position and then steal fuel from it to do everything else that we need to do. We can also dock with Highport E Nazir. And it's entirely possible we may be able to return, although I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of being able to return. I need to look at a Delta V map to determine if we have enough fuel to come home or not after we've done all the exchanging we have to do. Oh god, this flight's gonna look sketchy as hell. Um, yeah, because I'm not sure if we actually have the fuel to rendezvous with the high port either. There's always something always comes up during these missions. It's never as straightforward as you would want it to be. Target the target. You control from here. Target the target. And now we just have to dock. I mean, the good news is we made it through one attempt of the mission inside of a stream window. The bad news is the mission was, by most accounts, a failure. um, which is fine. That's literally just storytelling flavor. Apollo 13 didn't achieve its goals either, and it's probably the most memorable single act of spaceflight that wasn't a complete disaster. Um, Actually, honestly, for everything that Apollo 13 had to do to save itself, it might be the single most impressive feat of spaceflight. Um, Other than anything that took multiple launches to achieve, like the ISS or Mir or Tiangong or you know. All right, here we go. So this is what this step of this mission is supposed to look like. On the previous mission in the series, we couldn't get this container stabilized and we had to do some goofy spacewalk stuff. Transfer to there. And then transfer to there. All right. And then we're going to turn off the control wheel on that ship and engage SAS just so that it stops spinning. And what can we do? We can steal the last of the fuel. Um, and then put that in. Now suddenly we have a ton of fuel again. Why is that statement suddenly true? All right, let's get the maneuver planner out. We'll think about how to return. Um, oh, that's tons of fuel. Yeah, we'll just fly straight home. And much like last time, so the original mission plan was going to be that we'd be able to discard these command modules into the surface of the moon, which is exactly what Apollo did. The LEM would come up into orbit like this. The two astronauts that get to go to the moon will join their friend who doesn't get to go to the moon, and then they would discard this and use remote autopilot to fly it into the surface of the moon, which is just simply no longer possible for us because of design limits. I could put another like mech jeb thing on this guy. Better make sure that it understands that the control is from here too. Hold on a minute. Control from here. Yeah, okay. Um, so instead, what we did for the first mission and what we'll do for subsequent missions is drag it most of the way back to Kerbin with us. And it'll eventually just hit the atmosphere enough times that it will crash and burn and be destroyed that way. And then we're not littering up orbits with anything. I'm a little bit concerned with the way the UI looks right now. Okay, so now we're going to be going back to Kerbin. It looks like the Kerbin periapsis is super high, so when we get there, we're going to have to do some stuff to to save ourselves. But before we even leave Munar orbit, we have some more housekeeping type stuff to do, which is to move life support resources around. Basically, I'm gonna just kick all the life support out of the uh, lander module and all the waste that we have into the lander module. The waste transfer isn't as important. Excess waste gets thrown out. Like it's not like you'll have a problem that way. The reason waste is modeled is because there are like reprocessing modules you can install. Um, I'm getting a little concerned about life support. We only have a little under 2 days of life support left, and our periapsis at Kerbin is a day away, so we're cutting it pretty fine. Um, we're just gonna go ahead and accelerate time a little bit. Partly because it'll fix my HUD and I'll actually be able to see what's going on, which will be. Oh, the game may have crashed. All right. All right. We're now in the appropriate sphere of influence, so let us attempt to make our lives easier. We're going to go ahead and orient ourselves retrograde. And we're going to do this twice. The first time is going to be right now. And we are on our reentry course. So now we're going to switch everything around prograde. Undock, and we're going to let those separate a little bit for just a moment. I have to run away for a second, but I'll be right back. gang, I've returned. And you can see we're already getting pretty good separation from the module, but now I want to do something kind of silly. We don't actually have enough delta V to do what I was planning, which was to circularize. So what we're going to do is we're just going to accelerate ourselves away from the capsule a little bit. And now we're going to engage time dilation to basically just get back to Kerbin as quickly as possible. You will see, I kind of expected it to crash more often. The Sakai should be dragging through the atmosphere each time it goes past, but for some reason or other, it's just not doing it. So we'll probably have to either recover it manually or. Hopefully we'll come down on the day side here. All right, so at this point, we're going to decelerate. And yeah, we're like 16 minutes away from landfall, so it's a good time to separate from uh, this chunk of the spaceship, which will not survive re-entry, and which may actually sort of explosively destroy itself. All right, here we go. It's re-entry time. I'm kind of interested to see, yeah, the landing can actually hasn't re-entered yet. Oh, but it looks like the Sakai re-entry can might have. That or it's been flung so hard into the void that it doesn't appear on the map anymore. We'll have to examine that when we get to the tracking station too. Um, and yeah, our parachutes are armed, so it's literally just a matter of kind of waiting to re-enter now. It looks like we're just kind of crashing in the ocean too, which is fun. Something that doesn't at least seem to be modeled very well in Kerbal Space Program is your re-entry angle of attack doesn't appear to matter much. Something that was a genuine problem for the shuttle program was that if the shuttle re-entered at an inappropriate angle, it could actually essentially generate so much lift so quickly that it bounces back up into a higher orbit. That distant explosion was probably the command module breaking something. Yep, that is blown up and we're flying past it now. I'm genuinely concerned that we might not slow down enough to deploy parachutes. Saying it out loud makes it suddenly not be a problem. So yeah, I won't force people to like be subjected to rewatching this entire mission. There will have to be a Kojin-4 mission to basically go to where this mission was supposed to go. We'll spend a little minute or two because we this that didn't take quite as long as I expected it to. We'll spend a minute or two jumping around from site to site on the moon once we've landed. Oh boy, 4 parachutes might be too much. We are moving, believe it or not. And splashdown. Right, so now we have to go to the tracking station to recover this capsule. Let's see if we can see where it landed. Oh yeah, way to the south of anything. Um, which is just gonna have to do. Do all the buttons and dials and stuff inside the pod measure things? I believe so. I don't fly in first person very often. I know at least a few of the dials are actually like instrumented. The moon escape. All right, let's see what's going on with this thing. This is the that lander module, the like ascent stage of the lander, um, from that first mission, which was supposed to have burned up in Kerbin orbit, and it's very much not doing that. Oh, and now it's Kerbin periapsis for some reason. It got an assist from the moon. It got a gravity assist from the moon and got boosted back up into a higher orbit. That's not going to work. We're going to have to detonate this bad boy. But that's fine. So where is that? That's the Sakai rover. No, not the rover. Turn off all science ones. Yeah, this is our guy. We're going to terminate him. Okay. So let's think here. Wait, what? Oh, that's right. What we did reverted this. Okay, so let's try to land this again then. And we'll just have to control point here, control from here. That looks right. Okay, so let's make another attempt at landing this thing. It's doing it again. Alright, well, we can still try for a manual landing. Although, now that we're out of mono propellant, we're going to have a hard time with that. Okay, hopefully when we start dragging atmosphere, our air brakes will help with this a bit, but we'll see. We might have to do some other shady stuff. I've never managed. I know I said this earlier when we were doing this. This is like my reusable put something in orbit stage, but we've never actually managed to land it before. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic that we may be able to help me out here. All right, so we're starting to get into the thicker part of the atmosphere, so hopefully um, between the nose cone's shape and the shape of the air brakes, hopefully going to get enough like sort of traction against the air. Doesn't look like it though. But potentially, if I can get it roughly correct and then cut the engines out, we might be okay. We definitely need more RCS to control this thing when we're doing situations like this. Um, oh, we're going into a flat spin. That hasn't killed us necessarily. Oh, that might kill us though. Okay. Mm. Yeah, I forgot about the drogues. It's not gonna work now though. Yeah, this rocket design might be over-engineered for its purpose. I just thought the idea of using a reusable ground stage, kind of like I don't know, like the Falcon 9, for doing this kind of thing would be cool because that means that like our moon stage is reusable. and our flyer is reusable. So like the only thing that's not reusable is the actual like landing equipment. Now if I can just get us through the reentry heating. Um, Without burning all the fuel. Well, there's the Kerbal Science Center over there. Um, so again, we're not horrendously off the mark with our landing. Although hitting the mark with this thing on landing was never really the problem. The problem is getting it going slow enough when it hits the water. Shit. All right. Well, this is probably a lost cause now. It usually destroys itself on impact if it doesn't have enough fuel for braking burn. But you never know. The parachutes might actually deploy. Are there 8 of them? Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 8. So I don't know. We could add more parachutes to it. Um, it would also help if it didn't like completely consume its entire RCS complement launching that one particular payload. The drogue shoots aren't going to be that helpful in this situation. Also, really curious why only one went off, but whatever. Oh, we could have had parachutes this whole time. That's very frustrating. No, we're still falling too fast. We're gonna break up when we hit the ground. It's possible that what I actually need to do is take the drogue shoots off the design. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we need to be going like less than 10 meters per second vertical to make this happen safely. If I had saved a little bit of fuel, we could have probably done like a terminal braking burn and saved it, but who cares? There's no more. Let's recover it. What else is left? Oh, we got to bring the Glukov back from the moon. But that's super duper easy to do. Oh, look how close we got it though. So that's the actual space center, and then that's the island airfield. So yeah, that was actually not the worst place we could have landed it. Let's go get our little workhorse ship back and look at that. Look at all that fuel we got. This little workhorse is great, man. Oh, shit. Oops. All right, that's fine. We can get rid of that easily in other ways. Like right this very minute. Stop reattaching it. This is kind of fun. We can do these like course correction burns on the way back in from Kerbin. or from the moon to just kind of like save ourselves time. It's the same as that mid course correction burn on the way out to the moon. Um, it saves you from having to like circularize at Kerbin and then uh, mess around with everything else you need to do. Um, Only match planes with the target that's in the same sphere of influence. Well, let's fix that then. Still have plenty of fuel. I'm not really concerned about. You can speed up time, but can you reverse it too? Like if you wanted to play around with trajectories and stuff? No. You can do some cheaty things. You can reload a save from earlier, um, which is kind of the easiest thing to do. But you can also you can place trajectories onto your orbital track that are in the future and play with them to see what they do. But there's nothing you can do that actually just runs the clock backwards. Partly because of the way the physics simulation works, it'd be really computationally intensive to run the physics backwards, if that makes sense. It's not like they're not doing n body problem math, but they are doing like individual forces on kind of every object. Circularize at the next periapsis. Create node and execute. I'm just going to get this thing kind of refueled to set myself up for the next time I play, and then we'll probably end up calling it a night. I have, as part of the new job that I announced at the beginning of the stream, I have a new life schedule I have to live by, so I have to remember to cut it short a little earlier. I don't know what that's going to mean for the stream schedule long term, but we'll see how it gets as it gets. I am glad that I finally turned up the ambient lighting so that when we're on the dark side like this, I can see what's going on. And you can see what's going on. For a while I didn't want to do it because it's like, no, I like the realism of it being dark on the dark side of a planet, and then I realized that everything I'm doing is automated dockings and stuff. And even with lights, I can't see half the time. For some reason, you never considered the computer would have to reverse the math. I guess you figured it'd be remembered frame by frame, but that's a lot to keep in memory when you think of it. Yeah. Um, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's written a mod that lets you do it. People have written mods that add multiplayer to the game, and considering how this game works, I can't imagine actually playing it multiplayer. Like, it would just be such a shit show. Um, but yeah, the way the physics simulation works, like, individual parts can be destroyed. Each individual part of a spacecraft is having its acceleration and like aerodynamic forces and thrust forces and stuff like that modeled all the time. Basically, the only thing they're not actually modeling is gravity, sort of. Um, Boy, it's a good thing we don't have to think about life support when we're doing this stuff. um, what is kind of cool about the game? So the game uses a real-time clock that normally runs at 1 time speed. An in-game day is 6 hours. It just happens to be that this planet we're orbiting, Kerbin, rotates every exactly 6 hours. So the in-game clock has a 6 hour day. But other than that, it's essentially real time, and I've always thought it would be really interesting if you did enough automation with your mission profiles to like run missions in real time as like a computer aquarium kind of thing, like just have it up on a display in the corner of your office or whatever, and watch these operations take place in real time. Of course, 90% of the time that would mean almost nothing is happening because you're just coasting from location to location, much like real space travel. Whee! Give me that breaking burn, child. So eventually, the plan would be, you guys saw this at the beginning of the stream, and you're seeing it now. I've parked what is basically a fuel tank with a rocket on it in orbit. But eventually, what the plan would be is that above Kerbin, there will be a space station, kind of like what we have at the moon. Right now, above the moon, there is a space station. Um, and these transfer stages would just kind of fly back and forth between the two stations. And eventually, like, I would genuinely like to eventually automate those flights so that um, when I don't want to play out each individual step of the fuel cycle, I don't have to. um, but having stations would also make it much easier to like. I need to pick up a dozen. I need to pick up a dozen Kerbals and take them to the moon or whatever. Hopefully I have enough monopropellant to pull this off. It's a little iffy. We might have to finalize the docking with the... This is actually really iffy. Hold on. Yeah. Um, that thing... the Stickman, the fuel tanker, actually has the ability to fly its own docking, so if we had to, we could bring it over to us, but I think we can make this little 70-meter gap on the fuel we got. And this is the kind of stuff that, like, using the autopilot makes trivial, but for me it would be virtually impossible. Like, I would just burn way too much fuel doing these tasks if I could pull them off at all. But they're nothing superhuman. Someone was mentioning the other day that Nvidia, the like graphics card people, have a feature that works like the screen recording button on the Switch. So if you don't have a Nintendo Switch and you're listening to this, there's a screen capture button, and when you click it, it takes a snapshot. But if you hold it for a second or maybe 2 seconds, it'll record like the 30 previous seconds of gameplay or the 60 previous seconds of gameplay to video. Um, and I've really wanted that for this game specifically. All right, we made it. Might as well actually do the top up since we're here. PlayStation has the same features on a button. Yeah, I figured it must be like a fairly common gaming thing now. Love taking screenshots and videos. Me too, but not as much as Miyauki. Miyauki is constantly trying to record screen clips and then finding that she's got too many recorded. She has to empty some out first. What made me sort of slow down is that on the Switch it got complicated to get them. For a while, you could either tweet them directly or you could like transfer them to a phone, and then both features kind of stopped working for me at the same time. So now, if I want to get the clips or the screenshots off my Switch, um, like just for me to use, right? I don't understand. Did I pin these? I don't understand. Okay, hold on. We're gonna go to the tracking station, then come back. You've even directly posted to YouTube from your console. I know, like it can be really convenient to be able to do that kind of thing. All right, that fixed the interface problems. So let's. Man, there's still so much fuel stuck on this tanker. There's a decent app, but you have to mess around with the QR stuff. Maybe that's the problem, is that I just don't have the app. It's trivial, especially now that like every computer in the house has the appropriate hardware. It's really easy to take the SD card out and then put it in a computer and just take the screenshots off that way. It's still less of a pain in the ass than trying to get screenshots from Steam. Steam has like the worst system for organizing screenshots. This might be the last time we're able to top up this Glukov with this particular stickman. It all really just depends on where the fuel is. But I can't check before we're done fueling back up. Alright, so there's still fuel there. There's still a ton of fuel there. Alright. And for safety, we deactivate this engine. Always deactivate that engine. Should have done that first. Alright. So I guess let's really quickly hop over to the... You agreed on the Steam bit. I just think the Switch, being family-oriented, shouldn't remember so many hoops. Yeah, but Nintendo has always kind of dragged their feet when it comes to like online multiplayer functionality, if I can phrase it that way. I'm gonna terminate the Hattori module. All right. So let's really quickly review what we achieved. We did send the Koj-3 mission to the moon, but unfortunately, I'm going to turn off KerbNet real quick. Unfortunately, instead of landing um, up here at Point Eurus, it landed way the hell off course. I don't even see it on the map. I think it's this here. Yeah, it landed way the hell over here. Which is kind of nowhere to anybody. This was not any of the locations that we can even considered for fuel, which makes sense. It also had the lowest amount of ore that we've seen um, in any of these missions. So I guess next time, maybe not next time I stream Kerbal Space Program, but certainly next time I play it, the thing to do will be to come over to Eurus and actually explore. I'll show you why I want to explore it. Firstly, we're near where I've already managed to put some resources on the ground, and with a bit of effort, I could probably drive them over here. Um, but this is also kind of like the second best terrain I've found so far, and it is the absolute best fuel purity that I've found so far. Like this area, um, in this direction especially, is just kind of like gently rolling, which is very nice. Um, but I mean, I don't know. We might. I'll definitely send a manned probe there to check it out, just because obviously you want it to work when it works. Um, so, but either the next episode will be that mission, depending on like what my playtime looks like, or it will be a colonization mission to follow up on that mission. This is the results of our previous mission. So we've landed near another one of our probes. This was Boreas, because it was the northernmost probe. Um, and like this area isn't quite as flat, but it is pretty damn suitable. And the more you go in, we rolled our rover over, but the more you go in this direction, the flatter it gets, until you eventually curve around. Down in that direction is another one of the sites we were interested in. So like this crater would be fine. The other crater we picked would be better, but only if I can land something there. And so far, for whatever reason, landing stuff in that crater has been difficult. Yeah, roll over. I was having some success having the astronaut flip this rover over if I tucked its feet in like this, and then it managed to just get in exactly the wrong angle that I can't flip it over anymore. I've tried rolling it. Um, if you turn on its reaction wheels, actually it doesn't have any reaction wheels, but I've tried all sorts of rolling. I've tried all sorts of flipping. It simply does not want to right itself, partly because this is a really bad rover design. Um, but yeah, that's gonna be it. We're either gonna have to do another video with another mission exactly like this one, just to the right location, or we'll be doing a mission landing some actual assets on the moon. Um, Going with a different Munar settlement plan than we were using before. Um, Gotta watch more BattleBots for good flip design. You're right. I'm gonna share the wiki in the chat. It'll also be in the doobly doo if you're watching, the VOD of this playthrough on YouTube or something. The wiki has copies of the save file, copies of the mod list, and like edited screenshots and stuff, as well as all the lore that goes into all these weird little missions. Um, so yeah, thanks very much for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.